Hello and welcome to Gondor Calls for Ale, a Middle-earth strategy battle games podcast. I am your host, Sam Gallagher, and with me in yet another episode is my brother Ben.
Hello, listeners and viewers. Welcome to the episode 89, Sam. That's exciting. We're only 11 away from that big 100.
Yeah. Whoa! Welcome to Gondor Calls for Ale. We're going to talk about stuff in this episode. So, Ben, do you want to tell us what we're going to talk about in this episode?
Well, Sam, in this episode, we are going to be continuing our coverage of the Nova Open, the 2025 Nova Grand Tournament. 700 points. We left off after rounds 1 and 2. We did some battle reporting in our previous episode. Before we dive into the games, we're going to do a look at some of the armies on display. I took a picture of some of the armies that were out there. So we're going to look at those first. But before we do any of that, Sam, we're going to get into the most important part of every Gondor Calls for Ale episode, which is, of course, the ale. So I'm going to switch it up again. For Nova, Ben asks the questions. So, Sam, what are you drinking? Go ahead and tell me. Tell me all about it.
Well, Ben, I'm having an Angmar Pale Ale. A fell brew strong enough to topple Rivendell, Lorien, the Shire, and even Gondor itself.
Nice. What are you quoting there? What's that a quote from?
I think it's Gandalf. If this fell kingdom should rise again, Rivendell, Lorien, the Shire, and even Gondor itself should fall, or something. I think it's from The Hobbit. Yeah. All right. Well, Ben, what are you having? What are you having for this?
Well, Sam, for this episode, I have myself a Glamdring Red Ale. This mighty beer is simply known to the goblins of the Misty Mountains as the Foam Hammer.
Very good. I like it. Well, with all of that bumbling intro and mixing things up, I should probably go back and listen to some of our earlier episodes and get my rhythm back. Let's move on into the meat and potatoes of the episode itself, starting off with a little hobby highlight.
All right, yeah, here we go. So we've got a lot of armies to get through, and just going to dive right on in with this sweet Birdo's Horde. This wasn't Sam's Birdo's Horde.
No.
I was playing it in the Open. This was somebody else's Birdo's Horde, and I thought it was pretty sweet, so I took a picture of it.
Yeah, I'm assuming what you're showing here, and it's worth talking about how this worked this year, is rather than having the tournament organizers and judging team judge the armies on parade, basically. Games Workshop was judging all of them. So they went through on, it was the first day, right? Yeah, it must have been the first day. They went through on the first day and sort of looked at every army and, while people were playing. So they just walked through the tables and looked at people's armies. I think they had some sort of list. And then at the end of the day, the top 16?
15, I think.
Armies were basically given nominated for potentially best army, and you had to go and take the army and put it in a hall where in the evening they would do the official judging. So this is, I think, what Ben is taking pictures of.
Yeah, so most of these were taken during that official judging. Yeah, so this is a sweet Birdo's Horde. There's a couple of them you can see here, but some of the orcs are modeled with flaming brands, which I thought this is the second year this display board's been at Nova. I think it's cool. I just thought it was worth taking a picture. I think this time around the army has changed, but display board still pretty sweet. Minas Tirith in the background. Maybe Army of the Great Eye on the foreground there. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah. Unclear. Very cool.
We got some cool Sons of Aeol with a little water effects board and a whole bunch of writing that I can't read, talking about the Fields of Kellenbrand. I think it's actually the force name, right, Sam?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
I really like the mirrors for this Khazad-dûm army. I know who painted this, and he always does a great job. Fantastic army of Durin here. I'm not sure what the mirrors are, but are they 3D prints? Do you know?
I believe they look like they are. I also worth noting. So this, I think, is painted by Cody, right? Who entered Saruman the White on horse into the Capital Palette. I think he said he was in the journeyman category, which is the one.
I think that's right.
And he got a gold, so good for him.
Yeah, congratulations. Beautiful. I think he took one of the Nova awards. There were like top 5 awards for best painted at Nova, I think, and he took one of them with this army too. We've got here a cool Battle of Fornost army with Glorfindel, Círdan in the cool little tower, and of course Éomer, last king of Gondor. And the spiders. This is Young Duke's spider army. If you want to hear how he did, he talks about his whole Nova experience on his YouTube channel. Definitely worth checking out. But he, of course, has converted every single one of his spider models to cat models.
The YouTube channel, his YouTube channel is Kim's Talisman, I believe.
Kim's Talisman?
Yeah.
I knew you'd know what it was. I could have looked it up, but I was like, Sam will know.
Yeah, he's been posting some of his dwarves he's been working on too on there, sort of little like how he does the conversion videos and stuff. It's very cool.
Yeah, good stuff. We got here this one was taken in the gaming hall, another little Khazad-dûm army. I just like this display board. I think it's cool because it's using like real plants for the trees. And this should look familiar, Sam.
Yes, Sam's multi-purpose display board.
And of course, Budur's Horde. All right, that was our hobby highlight for Nova. Some really cool armies on display. They get better and better every year. I love the armies on parade from Nova. It's always a fantastic time. And, cool to see Games Workshop taking an interest and diving in with the judging. A little bit weird that they sort of like took it away from the event organizers, but,
Yeah, I mean, I've got to imagine that if they wanted to, they could have either said no to Games Workshop, or it could have been a supplementary, like, hey, here's the Games Workshop judging. Because the thing that was a shame about it, right, is that in years previous, there was, like, judge voted best painted, favorite army, good and evil, which I guess they still did favorite army, good and evil. I think they did a single model one as well, like best single model, good and evil, and and display board. And so I think there were like top 3, maybe it was top 5 best armies, favorite good and evil, and but no display board, no single mini. So but yeah, anyway, lots of very cool hobby. Always fun to see people's display boards, people's awesome armies. And I guess we can get into the games.
All right, so we are going to kick it off with my round 3, Sam, where I was playing Contest of Champions. So for those of you who may have forgotten, in the 2 weeks past, have forgotten what army I'm playing, I am, of course, playing Atop the Walls, led by Gandalf the White on Shadowfax with Pippin. And we've got Irolas and an Avenger Bolt Thrower in there as well. And I was playing against Scott, who was playing not the Fell Beings of Mirkwood Ben, the Assault on Lothlorien, of course led by Musga. He also had Durazag, an Orc Captain, and a Wild Warg Chieftain.
All right. I guess since it will have been a few weeks, if you haven't listened to these back-to-back, Ben, going into this game, what was your record? How were you doing?
I had won my last 2 games, a minor win by a single victory point, and then a major victory by, I forget how much, but a major victory.
All right, excellent. I will now proceed to give us a dramatic reading of Contest of Champions, where if you are watching, you can see the beautiful deployment map that Ben has correctly put in, and if you're listening, I will endeavor to describe it to you, because it'll be hard to bring all of you boxes. So, we have a deployment that's basically 24-inch deployment zones. Your own deployment zone is broken into 2 12-inch sections, basically from the back of the board edge, 12 inches up, and then from 12 inches to 24. And in the center, there is a 6-inch diameter circle. What could that mean? We have some rules for deployment. So I'm just going to read this because this is pretty different from what it used to be. Before any models are deployed, both players must nominate one hero in their army to be their champion. Both players roll a d6. The player with the highest result chooses one of the deployment zones, then places their champion wholly within the deployment zone and within 3 inches of the center of the board. Then deploys their champion's warband wholly within their deployment zone and within 6 inches of the champion. Their opponent then does the same. Excellent. All right, and then when you go to deploy the rest of your army, you roll a dice, and on 1, 2, 3, They must be deployed wholly within their deployment zone within 12 inches of the player's board edge. So basically, and a 4, 5, and 6, you get to choose. So basically, if you roll a 1, 2, or a 3, you're deploying further away from the middle where your champion is fighting. We have a game that lasts until one army has been reduced to 25% of its starting numbers. We have a few victory points here that I'm going to read. Keep count of how many kills your champion scores in combat through the course of the battle. Note kills caused by shooting, magic powers, or the hurl brutal power attack do not count towards your champion's score. You score 4 victory points if your champion has killed more models than your opponent's champion. If your champion has killed at least 2 models and twice as many, instead you score 8. If your champion has at least 3 models and 3 times as many, instead you score 12. You score 2 victory points if your champion kills the opposing champion. You score 1 victory point if the enemy army is broken at the end of the game. If the enemy army is broken and yours is not, instead you score 3. You score 1 victory point if your general is alive at the end of the game. If your general is alive and has suffered no wounds, instead you score 3. We have some special rules. We've got a time of heroes, so if one of your heroes kills a model, so you get a point of might back. And stand and fight. At the start of the move phase, the champion that currently has scored fewer number of kills may declare a heroic move for free during the move phase. If they do, they must charge an enemy model. There we have it.
Nice. So here is our deployment. Of course, the Avenger Bolt Thrower goes down before even the champions are deployed, once board edges are selected. So you can see in the back of my deployment zone, I put down Gandalf as my champion, and Scott picked the Wild Warg Chieftain as his champion. Iralas rolled a 3 and had to deploy on the back of the board. Musgur and the Orc Captain both rolled 2s and had to deploy on the back of the board, but Durzag rolled a 6 and got to deploy up front supporting the Wild Warg Chieftain. And it's worth noting that there are a couple of bats in this army as well. So I was feeling pretty confident going to this, not going to lie. I felt like it was my game to lose. You know, Gandalf seemed like a pretty good champion, and the Wild Warg Chieftain seems like he's going to have a hard time keeping up, especially if Gandalf can charge into him. So I take first turn priority. Fantastic, if that's what we like to see. And we, of course, get a move off between Druzag and Gandalf, spending a point of Pippin's might. The move off goes to Druzag, and the battle lines engage. A couple of important things happen on this first turn. The Wild Warg Chieftain charges into 2 Warriors of Minas Tirith, backed up by 2 more Warriors of Minas Tirith. That's good, we like that, that's fine, expected that. And a Goblin Prowler charges into Gandalf, hits him with a throwing weapon. So I can't remember if he charged or if this happened in the shooting phase, but either way, Gandalf gets tied up by a Goblin. In the shooting phase, a bunch of Goblins throw at Gandalf. One of them hits Gandalf. Hits Shadowfax. Hit Shadowfax, wound Shadowfax. So I spent 3 points of fate, both of Pippin's and 1 of Shadowfax's, starting with Shadowfax's, and then both of Pippin's to stay on Shadowfax, which was an unfortunate start. In the combat phase, though, the Wild Warg Chieftain and Gandalf. So Gandalf gets a kill this turn in combat. No, I'm sorry, tell a lie, that's next turn. I've got to look at my notes a little better. The goblin that Gandalf is fighting gets killed by the other throwing weapon, so Gandalf is not in combat anymore. And the Wild Warg Chieftain completely biffs his combat, doesn't call it heroic combat, just completely biffs it. I think he rolls like a 4 high and decides not to spend any points of might to win the fight. And my Warriors of Minas Tirith put 2 wounds through onto the Wild Warg Chieftain, which is what we like to see. And after humming and hurrying, Scott elects not to spend his point of fate. He just saves the fate. So he's sitting on 1 wound, 1 fate. I take the next priority, and we get another move off once again. But Durzag calls a move. This time Iralas calls a counter move, and the move off once again goes to Scott. I should note that in the combat phase last turn, I killed 4 goblins. Kind of irrelevant. Basically, he puts another couple of goblins into Gandalf, or a goblin into Gandalf. The Wild Warg Chieftain goes back into combat, and the battle lines re-engage. In the combat phase, I get 3 kills with Gandalf. I call it heroic combat. Get the kill on the 1 guy I'm in. I believe I piled a bunch of warriors into him as well, just to really confirm that kill. And then Gandalf moves into 2 more goblins and kills them, pushing up the board, as you can see in this picture. Elsewhere in the combat phase, I get a bunch more kills, getting 8 kills total, but do take 4 casualties this turn, one of them from the Wildwire Chieftain. So Wildwire Chieftain getting a kill here. Turn 3 goes to Scott, and of course we get yet another move off between Iralas and this time Musgur, who has moved up close enough to get his heroic move within range of relevance of the battle. And the move off once again goes to Scott with Musgur moving first, and the battle lines re-engage. He throws a transfix at Gandalf from. Oh no, I'm sorry. That's the other way round. Why am I spending? Yeah, he must have thrown a transfix or a wither at something with Gandalf. I spent both the Shadowfax as well and was able to resist the spell. No big deal there. Once again in the shooting phase, a bunch of throwing weapons get chucked at Gandalf, and we get another wound on Shadowfax, and I should have just been like, screw it, Shadowfax is dying this turn. I elected to spend a point of Gandalf's Fate to try and stay on Shadowfax, and failed my Fate roll on a 1. So having invested 1 point of Fate, I felt the need to spend a 2nd point of Fate, which I then also failed. So I was like, screw it, I'm going to spend my last point of Fate, which was a terrible, terrible idea to stay on Shadowfax. Spent all 3 Fate, failed the Fate, and Shadowfax was killed this turn. So that was off a throwing dagger that charged into Gandalf. So that was in the combat phase. So Gandalf now out of Fate, surrounded. The Wild Chieftain turns around and jumps into Gandalf as well, along with a bat. In the combat phase, so I've felt this game slipping away slowly, and definitely a blunder to have spent all of Gandalf's Fate like that. In the combat phase, Gandalf calls it heroic defense, and Gruzag blows all of his will before the combat phase, in the movement phase, to enrage the Wild Chieftain. So enraged Wild Chieftain and a bat are into Gandalf. Gandalf calls a heroic defense, is trapped by a bunch of goblins, and is still killed by the Wild Chieftain through his heroic defense. So Gandalf is killed this turn, no Fate, just takes all 3 wounds and dies. And Pippin is also killed by the Wild Chieftain this turn as well. So the Wild Chieftain is now on 3 kills, one of whom is Gandalf. Interestingly enough, though, the Wild Chieftain takes a wound from the Enraged Beast. It's his last wound. He's got 1 point of Fate and 2 might left, hasn't spent any resources yet, and rolls a 1 on his Fate, and is also killed this turn.
So Gandalf was trapped, but only fighting the Wild Chieftain.
No, trapped fighting the bat, the Wild Chieftain, and...
How did the Wild Chieftain also kill Pippin? Because if he was in both, he would have...
Oh...
He wouldn't...
Maybe it might... Maybe... Maybe Pippin dies next turn and my notes are wrong. Pippin must die next turn. No, that's not right.
Because the Wild
Interesting.
Sounds like...
It's possible this game was played a while ago. It's possible that that Shadowfax wasn't killed by a throwing weapon, and because then I wouldn't have called the defense. Yeah, no, because Gandalf definitely got shot off of Shadowfax and spent his Fate before the Wild Chieftain charged into him.
Right.
I'm not sure. Pippin must have died. We may have scored this game wrong. It may have been one of the bats that killed Pippin, or Pippin just died from an orc.
Or you didn't.
Interesting. So this game, that's an interesting point, Sam. I'm not quite sure how Pippin got killed by the Wild Chieftain. I definitely have it noted down as that happening. But you're right. That shouldn't work.
Shouldn't be possible. It's either Pippin's peeled the Wild Chieftain, or the other thing he's fighting. So
yeah. So. Anyway, with Iralas out of might, Gandalf dead. The Avenger Bolt Thrower hasn't been doing anything this game because it's Dark of the Night. Obviously, I'm fighting Assault on Lothlorien. It does get into a position to call a couple of moves later on in the game. But essentially, with Gandalf dead, I'm going the wrong way through my slideshow. Anyway, with Gandalf dead, the game is over for me, and it wraps up a couple of turns later with an 8-0 loss because we tied on kills for the Wild Chieftain and Gandalf. So if we did that wrong and Gandalf had more kills than the Wild Chieftain, it would still have been a major loss because it would have just been 4-8. Because as the tournament as it stood, no one was getting any victory points for being the champion to kill the most guys.
Right. Well,
So, a disappointing game. Definitely a blunder to have blown all of Gandalf's fate in an attempt to stay on Shadowfax. After the first 3 is fine, because if Shadowfax loses his fate, then you can't spend Pippin's... If Shadowfax dies, you can't spend Pippin's fate on Gandalf anyway, so you might as well spend Pippin's fate on Shadowfax.
sure.
But spending Gandalf's fate on Shadowfax was definitely a mistake. I should have just bitten the bullet and hit the ground with 3 fate that I can reroll, and it would have been fine. The game would have continued on longer, but also just tough to lose all 3 of the move offs. If I'd won either of the second 2 move offs, I'd have been able to charge Gandalf into the Wild Warg Chieftain, and it would have been a different.
Right. You also could have been casting spells.
That's true.
Blinding Light or Sorcerer's Blast, the Wild Warg Chieftain, and you stand a reasonable chance of killing him. He's only got 1 will.
Yeah.
No, maybe they have 2. They have 2 will, but still, Sorcerer's Blast a model into him. He takes a Strength 5 hit or whatever. I guess that's not how it works anymore. Anyway, but bummer. It is always. It's the interesting thing about taking these notes and re-looking at these games is, and it makes sense, but it does seem that the games where you lose most of the move offs or the priorities, usually, when one does, not just you, are usually the ones that go worse. So,
yeah, that's true. I've definitely won games where I've lost every single priority. I don't know if I've won a game where I've lost all the move-offs.
Yeah. All right. Well.
All right, Sam. Tell me, hit me with your game 3, and what was your record at this point as well?
So I had a major loss in round 1 against the Reclamation of Osgiliath, and then a major victory in round 2 against the Champions of Erebor. So I was really just on the hope for a game that wasn't mega one-sided. And I was playing Chris. We also played Contest of Champions, so you escape the dramatic reading of a scenario event. And he was playing Khazad-dûm. So he had Durin, Mardin, and a captain, and a bunch of Hearthguard, and a reasonable number of rangers.
Nice.
So we were playing on Taylor Swift's table, which is obviously 22.
I was about to make that same joke.
And unsurprisingly, we both nominated our generals to be our champions. So he had Durin as his champion, I had Burda as my champion, and so I wasn't ambushing Burda this go round. This was a little bit hairy. Burda being on a 50mm base within 3 inches of the center, you actually can't get models. Because I think did he deploy first? But I couldn't get a wall of models in between him. Or if I could, he was going to be like...
Maybe if you go first, you can get like a couple of models so he can't get trapped. But if you're going second, then there's the control zones to worry about then.
Yeah, so it was sort of like it was a decision of, do I try and screen him a little bit, and he probably doesn't get into combat and is then stuck for a while, and Durin just carves through orcs? Or do I just, say fuck it and we're going to fight Durin right off the bat, which is what ended up happening, Ben.
Nice.
So I rolled my orc captain, was able to deploy close, which was useful. It meant I had basically a line. We were playing on a Shire board, if you're viewing, and we had these weird, funny hedges that... I was like, no, we counted as impossible terrain, as I think we should have. And then some hobbit holes. So I had a front line of Burda, 2 hill trolls on either side of him, and some orcs in between, backed up by a captain. And then the Wild Warg Chieftain rolled 3 or less, and so he and his warband of Wild Wargs and Warg Riders were off on a flank. And basically,
nice. That's like the perfect deployment for you. Like, it would have been nice to be able to deploy the wargs up closer, but if one of the warbands has to be back, that's the way around you want it.
Yeah, no, it definitely would have been really nice because the board was fairly hard with all the bases he was able, and these hedges he was able to use choke points fairly effectively. And had I been closer, I would have been really easy I would have spent 2 turns circling around and being able to trap his army. So we get into priority on turn 1. I win priority. I decide to give it to me. He says that's fine. So this was my this was the decision point. I just threw Berda right into...
No move off.
No move off. No, he said, that's fine, you may have it.
Shocking.
So I just threw Berda into Durin right off the bat, put my two hill trolls into the side, and then got some orcs in combat. My whole plan here was this was going to be brilliant. I had priority. I got to pick the fights first. I was going to hurl a dwarf at Durin. I'd knock him over. He would be trapped, and I can't rend him because he's got mithril armor, but I can take 6 strength 7 strikes at him and hopefully do some damage. So we get into combats, and that is exactly what happened. I picked the hill troll first, I did the fight, I failed my intelligence test, and threw the dwarf at a random dwarf. I then did the second hill troll, and failed the other intelligence test. And now, neither of us called anything with our...
Durin's fight 6, yeah?
No, Durin's fight 7. Neither of us struck, because I decided not to strike, because I was going to be Durin was going to be on his butt on average. And he decided not to strike either. We get the fight with Berda, and I can't remember if I won or not this time round. I think I still did win the fight, but just didn't do any wounds to him, because I only hit 3 dice, and I'm looking for 5s or 6s. So, I do manage to kill 2 dwarves, which is pretty impressive, and I lose 2 orcs. Turn 2 goes to Chris. He decides to keep priority. And there was no move off here. I think basically my orc captain must have been out of place, or I just decided it wasn't going to matter, because the thing that really mattered was being able to call the order of the combat so I could hurl into Durin, which I wasn't going to be able to. So this turn, lines relock. This turn we get a strike off with Durin and Berda. I lose a total of 5 models and only kill 1 dwarf here. I strike to an 8. He strikes to a 10. I think he must have let me do a hill troll first, because I have failed another hurl, or maybe at this point it was just annoying that I kept failing them. So I do lose the fight here, and I believe I take 3 wounds and pass with Berda's 1 point of fate pass. So Berda takes 2 wounds. So neither of us have any kills with our champions, but Berda is decidedly on the fence. Turn 3 also goes to Chris, and I'm starting to be like, this is not looking great for me. I call a move with my orc captain this turn, and I decided to call the move this turn because Berda was done fighting Durin. He was not having it, and he calls a move with Martin. The move goes to me. I basically shuffle my lines around so Berda gets into 2. So I think if you move forwards, there may be another... Yeah, so here we go. So this is about where it is. I shuffle my lines around. Unfortunately, it does mean I don't have a hill troll in combat, but Berda gets into a couple of Hearthguard, and I think I just charged Durin. It's hard to...
Looks like with just 1 orc.
Yeah, with an orc. So Berda has to spend a point of might to win the fight, because at this point, if he loses, especially to a +1 to win Hearthguard, he's going to die. But I do get the kill, and I lose another 6 models this turn.
Damn, dwarf just cleaving through you.
I mean, yeah, +1 to... They outfight me. They need 5s, and they get +1 to wound on a majority of his army. Turn 4 goes to me. We get another move off here between Martin and my orc captain. I don't have it written down who it goes to, but basically our lines relock. I think Durin goes into one of my into the hill troll this turn. And once maybe does he go into... Yeah, no, he must have gone into a hill troll, or I put a hill troll into him. We get some combats this turn. I have a good turn. Berda does unfortunately have to spend his last point of might to win his fight, but gets me another couple of kills. I lose. I kill 5 models this turn, and only lose 3. And this was the important turn of the game, Ben. This was the big brain play that just I got lucky and it worked out for me. But I was very pleased with my decision here. So Durin fighting a hill troll, the Durin rolls like a 3 high or something. Basically, the hill troll wins the fight, and Durin decides not to spend his last 2 points of might to win it. So rather than striking blows at him or doing anything else, what I decide to do is hurl Durin. And I pass my intelligence test, and I basically try and hurl him as far away from Burda and the center as possible over to my left flank, where I don't have many models left. I've got like 3 or 4 orcs and a couple of warg riders, but importantly, it's on the opposite. The model I choose is on the opposite side of this impassable piece of terrain. I should note that at some point in time, he's been calling, or maybe we've been even on kills up until now. Yeah, I think we must have been even until kills up until this turn. So I huck Durin away. He's on the other side of this hedge, and if he chooses to use his free heroic move, he's going to have to charge and kill an orc on that side. So Burda is safe for a little while. Turn 5 goes to my opponent. He decides to take it. My Wild Warg Chieftain also has spent some number of might to try and chew through this flank. And at this point, Durin just goes straight into some orcs, and he doesn't have that many models on this left flank. And basically what I do is I pull the rest of my army away from Durin and that flank.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got like 2 orcs in combat. I lose another 7 models this turn, so things are looking ropey for me. Burda, I think, gets another 2 kill. I think one of my hill trolls, unfortunately, dies this turn because he successfully rolled a 2 high for his dual roll. Turn 6 goes to me. I decide to keep it, and this is what ends up happening for the rest of the game. I get the next 2 priorities. I'm putting Burda into a couple models a turn. I'm breaking through a little bit. I'm trying to get to his banner, but he keeps calling moves with Durin, and basically Durin's out of position, and he either can't get into orcs or he's getting into 1 orc. And for some reason, my opponent, I figured he would start calling combats with Durin, but he never did. Basically, when he moved, Durin would move, charge into an orc, and then he would send the rest of his army towards my army, which clogged up the gap. And the last couple turns of the game, Durin wasn't even in combat. So the game,
leave those gaps, man.
Yeah. So the game ended with Durin only having 3 kills, and Burda had 7.
Nice.
So it was a major victory to me, 4-2.
Good game. I mean, like you said, you did get lucky with Durin biffing it against the troll and then passing your intelligence test. But on the first turn of the game, you also failed 2 of those 7+ intelligence tests. To try and hurl dwarves at Durin, which could have equally been a very different game. So
yeah. I mean, he gets 4 dice to roll the 6 with Durin. I get 5 dice if my banner was around, 4 dice to try and roll higher. And yeah, the 7+ on average, and I've already failed 3 of them. I was fairly due for 1.
Right.
I'm mostly very pleased with myself that I thought to do that and just was like, fuck him away. He's going to be so hard for me to kill, and if I don't kill him, my hill trolls are pretty good at going through Khazad-Guard, as long as I outfight them. So if I get the 6 with 4 or 5 dice, if I have a banner, I can kill 1 or 2 of them. So yeah, a very satisfying game. It was close. It was tense. It almost went drastically wrong right off the bat, but I pulled it back and managed to get another major victory.
Nice. Nicely done. All right, onwards into round 4, Sam, where I was playing Austin, and we were playing Seize the Prizes, scenario number 17. And he was playing Erebor Reclaimed, or no, Champions of Erebor. Shoot. He had Thorin, King Under the Mountain, Glowin, and Bofa, and a bunch of Iron Hills dwarves, and I cannot for the life of me remember what legion that is.
I believe it's Erebor Reclaimed.
Erebor Reclaimed? Cool.
Yeah, because
Okay.
I think Champions of Erebor and Erebor Reclaimed are rolled into one army. All right, well, we will no longer worry about what these silly dwarves are called. We will just talk about what is involved in the scenario. We have a scenario with 12-inch deployment zones and 3 objectives across the center of the board. We've got a game that lasts until either all 3 artifacts have been carried off the board, or both armies have been reduced to 25% of their starting number. We've got a game with victory points. You score 2 victory points for each artifact that one of your models is carrying within your own board half. For each artifact one of your models is carrying within your opponent's board half, instead you score 3. For each artifact one of your models carries off your opponent's board edge, instead you score 4. At the end of the game, for each of the artifacts that is still on the board but not in possession of any model, the player who has the most models within 3 inches of the artifact scores 1 victory point. You score 1 victory point if the enemy army is broken. If the enemy army is broken and yours is not, instead you score 3. You score 1 victory point if the enemy general has been wounded during the game. If the enemy general has been wounded or has been removed as a casualty, instead you score 3. You score 1 victory point if you have at least 1 banner remaining at the end of the game. If you have more banners remaining than your opponent, instead you score 2. And then for special rules, we have uncovering artifacts.
All right. So, having lost my last game, I moved back down in the tables, and Sam, look at that, I'm back on the broken ship.
Oh, there it is. The broken ship, indeed.
Clearly have the home field advantage. Obviously, the bolt thrower deploys first, and as you can see in this picture, the bolt thrower is just locking down that center objective. It says, this is my center objective. You cannot have it. In the... all right, so we get into the game. I take first turn priority. Gandalf casts Blinding Light. I should say that he has, I think, 6 crossbows, 2 in each of the warbands. So Gandalf, having nothing better to do, casts Blinding Light this turn because, Sam, he is riding. He's riding to the center of the board. He is dismounting Pippin, and Pippin, once a fool of a took, but now he is a guard of the Citadel and he gets +1 intelligence, Sam. He's intelligence 6, and Pippin uses his trusty Barrow-White longsword to dig up the relic, and he then hands it back to Gandalf. So Gandalf now has got a relic. Which is good. And we've pushed our forces forwards. I take the next turn priority and give it to Austin, who calls a march with Glowin. He could have, if he'd left, this comes back to leaving gaps. You can't really see the dwarves here because this is, I think I took this picture at the top of turn 3. But basically, Thorin and Bofa are together on the board, and if he had left a gap in his lines, he could have called a move with one of them and a march with the other one, and then potentially charge into Gandalf on turn 2, because this army is allowed to charge off of a heroic march. They're speedy. These dwarves are very dangerous over short distances, even medium distances. But because both of his heroes were behind the back lines, there was no gap, there was no way for him to do that. So he just called the march with Glowin, and Glowin is on the opposite side of the board. So Gandalf has picked up my right-hand relic, and Glowin is booking it with a heroic march to the left-hand relic. So I take turn 2, I give it to Austin, he calls that march with Glowin, who heads that way. Irolas and his Citadel Guard have now arrived at the center of the board, Sam, and Citadel Guard are more intelligent than Warriors of Minas Tirith. They are also intelligence 6, and one of my Citadel Guard manages to dig up another relic. I had moved Gandalf first, of course, to a point where the Citadel Guard could then pass the relic off to him, so Gandalf gets the second relic.
Would you say, are these the rods of the 5 wizards, or the key
I mean, they're definitely important pieces of something that Gandalf is collecting. And Glowin on turn 3, Austin takes priority. We get some combat. Irolas calls a move. We get a move off between Glowin and Irolas, because as you can see in this picture, if Irolas gets to move first, I will get another Citadel Guard into the final relic and get to pick it up. The move off goes to Glowin, and Glowin is able to pick up the relic with the move off. In the center of the board, Gandalf's warband has shuffled sideways to sort of shield Thorin and Bofa, who were originally heading for the right-hand relic. Thorin and Bofa are now behind the ship, and I'm basically put my army in the middle of the board so they're not coming through the middle to attack Gandalf. And Thorin charges into combat in the center of the board there, and gets to call 3 heroic combats. and wins his heroic combat, and then completely biffs the wound roll and has to spend 2 points of might to successfully go through the warrior he was fighting and into another one. So I take 2 casualties this turn, but do manage to kill one of the dwarves that we're fighting over on that flank as well. 6s by 4s be damned in Shield Wall. Turn 4 goes to me, and I take priority. We get a heroic move by Glowin, which I just let him have because I just let him have it. There really wasn't anywhere. I thought he was going to retreat. It's what I would have done. I would have retreated with Glowin back towards Thorin. He didn't, though. He pushed Glowin into my side of the board, which really means that my entire army is now, and the ship are now between Thorin, Botha, and Glowin's warband. So there's like 8 dwarves or 6 dwarves or whatever with Glowin, and they are separated by my army and a big piece of terrain, which is fantastic. And we charge into Glowin's warband this turn. Don't even need any magic from Gandalf. We just charge right on in. I'm sorry. Gandalf spends a point of will to try and transfix Thorin, but fails to cast it. In the combat phase, Thorin calls a heroic combat, but fails to win his fight. I take 4 casualties, but do manage to kill 2 of the dwarves. Turn 5 goes to Austin. Irolas calls another move. Glowin calls another move. The move off goes to me. Irolas moves first. Gandalf spends 2 points of will to transfix Glowin, and Glowin spends his 2 points of will and manages to resist it. But it doesn't matter because Gandalf is able to charge into Glowin on this turn. We get a strike off. Glowin is trapped, so there's a bunch of Citadel Guard into him as well, and we get to kill Glowin this turn. And because Glowin is carrying the other relic, Gandalf got the final kill. Glowin actually tried to spend his 2 points of fate on the wounds that Gandalf did so that Gandalf wouldn't kill him, but failed both of his fate. Gandalf kills him and picks up the 3rd relic this turn. Thorin once again calls another heroic combat and fails again to win his combat. I was really feeling for Austin at this point, honestly, because the game was so in the bag for me, and Thorin, I don't know, I felt like he should at least be having a fun time slaying Warriors of Minas Tirith with Thorin. Thorin was just, completely failing to get anything done. I take the next turn priority to add insult to injury, which is all we need. Gandalf goes into a couple of dwarves, the last couple of dwarves in Glowin's warband, and calls a heroic combat this turn. So that next turn he will be within 12 inches of the board off, wins his heroic combat, and is able to ride off the board. But Sam, all is not over. Pippin has been slowly walking his way across the board from where he dug up the first relic to fight Thorin, King Under the Mountain, for shits and grins. Pippin calls a heroic strike against Thorin this turn. We get a strike off between Pippin and Thorin, which Thorin obviously wins, but it was funny to do anyway. Not actually sure he needed to call the strike because Pippin's fight 3 and could only go to fight 6, but he was, I guess Thorin is fight 6. It could have been a tie. But in classic style for this game, Thorin is unable to kill Pippin. Pippin doesn't even have to spend his fate, and the game ends with a 14-2 victory as Gandalf rides off the board with all 3 relics. A bit of a one-sided game. Definitely feeling the power of Shadowfax here. It was.
Yeah.
I mean, move 12, pick up a relic. Move 12, pick up a 3rd relic. Kill the other hero that's got the relic and ride off the board off a heroic combat was. Show us the meaning of haste.
Yeah.
So that was my game 4, and clearly I've not kept up with my slideshow at all. But that's okay. I took a lot of pictures of this game. On into your game 4, where you also played Seize the Prizes, I believe, so I am once again saved from reading a scenario.
I sure did. Yeah, and worth noting, I guess I sort of forgot to get in there before you started talking about your game 4. Game 4 was the first game of day 2. So after game 3, we went out, we got some food, had a nice time. And we got to see our pairings the night before, I think. So we had time to prepare and figure it out.
Yeah, prepare and scheme. Yeah, we went out and got Thai food with the veterans of Helm's Deep, who are always a good time. Had a great time and got to educate Zach on the difference between scallions and scallops.
Indeed, yes. And as with... I guess 2 Novas ago, Ben, I looked at the pairings the night before and saw that I was facing down a great beast of Gorgoroth, which, gave me all sorts of concern and worry, much like the previous
Midnight
guy.
Terrors.
So I was playing the tabletop admiral himself, Mr. Andrew, and we were playing Seize the Prizes, and he was playing, I believe it's the Army of the Great. Yeah, it was the Army of the Great Eye. It was led by the Witch King on Felbeast. It had a great beast of Gorgoroth and Gurritz, and he also outnumbered me and had a couple of Warg Riders. So we'll get into the game, where I was very stressed, as I said, about the Great Beast of Gorgoroth. I did read its rules, so I had I knew kind of what it did. I knew its various abilities. And we get into turn 1, where I win priority and decide to give it to Andrew. I think that's just generally what I tend to do, sort of react to see where people go. And also, if I moved up, we're at 24 inches. The Witch King is actually slightly further back than 24 inches. But if I moved up 6, he would be able to move the Witch King and cast some horrible magics at me. And I didn't particularly want to do that. He does, however, call a march with Gurritz. Ooh, exciting stuff. And flies up the board. And part of his flying up the board, as you see several orcs in the center there, are his Warg Riders, who move up 15 inches. They stay within 6 of Gurritz, dismount, and these orcs clearly went to the greatest academy in all the land, which is, of course, Uruk High. See what I did there? And they both passed their intelligence test of 8 pluses and picked up the relic. So that was I was a little bit like, well, that has dramatically changed the game. And then he basically put the Witch King directly behind the second one. I think if you move further forwards, we'll be able to see, yeah. I should note, I also called a march with my captain. I would have tried the same thing, I guess, but it didn't matter because he'd already got 2 of the relics. My sort of plan was to give him, his Great Beast was on my left-hand side, and I didn't really have all that much that wanted to tangle with that. So I was sort of going to concede that relic to him and try and get hold of the other ones. My wild wargs can't pick up the relics. So it was going to be up to my Warg Riders. Nobody dies or nothing else happens in this turn.
It's kind of funny that you're both playing. I guess it's the Witch King of Angmar. You're playing True Angmar, but you're playing on a Barrow Downs board.
Yeah.
Place for an Angmar Civil War.
Yeah, I actually really like this board. It's got like a stone circle in the middle, and before the game, we were both, we were like, what models can fit through these gaps? And basically, we went for if it looks like the model can fit through, the model can actually fit through, even the base is a little bit bigger. So that was also part of my plan.
That include your trolls?
Yeah, there were a couple areas the trolls could get through. There were a couple areas they couldn't get through. So you can see in this picture, if you're viewing, Burder is standing between 2 columns. He probably actually, physically, the base wouldn't fit through, but it was way big enough for him to fit through, and we decided to call it. So that was also my other plan, was I was like, well, I could get into this, and then I'm slightly more Great Beast proof. So we get into turn 2, where Andrew, this is a big turn. Andrew wins priority and gives it to himself. I call a move with both the Wild Warg Chieftain and my Orc Captain, because he calls a move with Gurritz. So in doing this, what it enables me to do is the Wild Warg Chieftain's Warband. I can get a Wild Warg into Gurritz if I win the move off, and then I still want to be able to move and charge these orcs and other stuff. So with all the luck in the world, the move goes to me. I do that. I lock up Gurritz. I surround his one orc that's got the objective on the right hand side, and I say in for a penny, in for a pound, which is a funny thing to say when you haven't committed anything, but Burda decides to charge into the Witch King. I take my terror test, I fail.
Yes, he's a penny and a pound all by himself.
Yeah, exactly. I fail my terror test, and this is where I definitely go in for a penny, in for a pound. I spend 2 will to charge the Witch King here.
You got 3 will on Big B?
Yep, 3 will. 3 will. So I didn't want the Witch King to be casting spells, and I was basically like, well, we're going to be, the goal of this game, I guess, now is just to have him not be able to cast magic at me. We then get into the combat phase where I kill 3 models and lose 3 models. We get into combat with Berda and the Witch King. Nobody calls anything.
Okay, so you outfight him.
So I outfight him and I win. Excellent.
Okay.
It's going really well. And I was really considering, because Berda's strength 6 and the Fell Beast is... Oh, Berda's strength 7, the Fell Beast is strength 6. I really considered, and he had an orc carrying an objective in base contact with him. I really considered picking up the Fell Beast and just spiking it into the orc next to him and not taking the Witch King off the Fell Beast, because I was like, that's actually not bad. It's, Anyway, I decided...
if you lose the next move off, the Witch King's taking that relic and flying far, far away.
True. Well, he wouldn't, because the Fell Beast is gone, so he would only be moving 6 inches away. Because he gets knocked prone.
No, I meant, it's reason to do that, because if the Fell Beast is gone, then he can't fly far.
Sure, yes, yeah. Anyway, I decide, screw it, I'm going to strike some blows at the Witch King. So I think I rend him, because I can, and get 3 wounds. Andrew has 3 fate on this Witch King, and proceeds to roll his first one, and I think he rolls a 1. He then rolls the second one, and I think he rolls another 1. And at that point, it doesn't matter, because even if he passes the third one, or spends all 3 might on the third one, he can only prevent... Or maybe I did 2 wounds to him. But he fails enough of his fate badly enough that it doesn't matter what happens, I get a wound through on the Witch King, he only has 1 wound, and the Witch King just evaporates.
Wow, way to change the face of that game.
Seriously, on turn 2, the Witch King's dead. It was just absolutely brutal. I felt so bad. I've spent years reading Andrew and Stephen's blog, and oftentimes Andrew's bad rolls are mentioned, and this felt like a live witnessing of just the worst possible rolls at the worst possible time.
Yeah, well, as someone who is also feeling the fate curse at the moment, my heart goes out to Andrew. That's tough to bear.
It was very, very tough. And then it sort of just compounds from there, honestly. Turn 3 goes to me. I take priority. There's he considered calling a move with the Great Beasts, but took it back. I got a couple models into the Great Beast. I think I got enough. I think I got 3 models into it to stop it from getting a trample off. I kill, Berda kills the orc carrying the relic in the middle. I kill Guritz this turn as well, and I kill a total of 5 models and only lose 3. Turn 4 goes to me as well. This time the Great Beast does call a move, and he gets a pretty good trample. He's trampling so he can fight this. You can see where he is. He's trampling so he can fight this hill troll. He kills 5 of my models and 2 of his own. We get some combats here. I kill 4 models and take another 3 casualties. So I've lost 8 models this turn and killed 4. The hill troll wins the fight against the Great Beast and does, I think, is it? Maybe, that's right. So he charges into the hill troll with the move. It's then my move. So I think if you go a picture over, maybe I have a picture of this. Berda charges into the Great Beast as well. So
there he is. He's blending into the rocks.
Yeah,
the Great Beast, but I see him.
So it's Berda and a hill troll fighting the Great Beast. I put 4 wounds on the Great Beast, which is not enough to kill it, but it's definitely hurting. Turn 5 goes to Andrew, and he decides to take priority. And we have to look up how the Stampede rule works, because it was like, can I just activate this last? Because basically you can see behind the Great Beast there is a massive clump of both of our orcs, if you potentially Stampede, if you have a war beast that's wounded, you have to activate it first and roll for your Stampede. It has to be the first thing you do.
It has to be the first model you activate?
Yeah, and
Can you call a heroic move to move before the war beast?
No, it's before. I think it's the first thing you do. That might not be true. I'm not 100% sure. He didn't actually have any other might left on the board.
Moot point then.
He fails his first courage test by 2, and has to spend, which this is where reading the rules beforehand, because I think he was like, oh, he's courage 6, and I was like, actually, I think the commander's courage 7. Anyway, he failed it by 2, had to spend a point of might, which was its last point of might and its last point of will to pass. He then passes the next, so that was the first one. He passes the next one, passes the next one, fails the last one. I turn the Great Beast around and get an epic stampede where he kills 2 of my models and 6 of his own models. I then proceed to kill another 4 of his models this turn. The Wild Wild Chief calls a combat. I'm getting 1 objective pretty close to the edge, I think. There's another turn. Turn 6 goes to me. He's broken at this point. A bunch of his models run. I do eventually manage to kill the Great Beast. And we mess this up. He's quartered and we end the game. And then after we reported, realized that it was both of us being 25%. I don't think it would have ended up mattering. There was the potential that had we gone on, there was the potential that my Relic Bearer would have gotten off the board, but I was also very close to being broken, or maybe was broken. Like, broke at the end of that turn, so it's also equally possible that my Relic Bearer would have just run. I don't remember what the final score of the game was, because I didn't write it down. I believe I had 2 relics in his half of the board, which is 6. I think I got 7 for having more models within range of 1 of the relics. I had killed his general for 10.
And then both of you got a point for breaking?
Yeah, so 11, and I think I had... I think it was 13-1. I think I also had banners and had killed his banner. So a major victory for me, and I felt, very sorry for Andrew's poor rolls. Played it well, got lucky with it, got lucky with his intelligence test to pick up those objectives, and it just could have been an entirely different game.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. That's difficult. That's always a bit of a tough place to be in, when you're like, yes, I'm winning!
Yeah. I mean, at least, it wasn't unlike your game 3, right, where it was a slow turn into defeat, where you sort of watched it slowly slip away. It was like, hey, cool, this is going better than it averagely should have been. Oh, shit. This game was lost.
Sharp 180.
Yeah. Because there was no way his army of orcs and the Great Beast was going to be able to pull that back against 3 hill trolls and Birder.
No.
All right, Ben. Round 5, the final round of Nova 2025.
Yes. Round 5. I was playing against Tyler, who was a friend of the show, or is a friend and Patreon of the show. So I was in for a fantastic game for round 5, Sam, and we ended up playing scenario number 14. Which I forget the name of. Sites of Power. Sites of Power is the scenario that we played.
Sites of Power, a game of Maelstrom of Battle, Ben. We have 4 objectives on the board in the 4 table quarters, like 4 on a die. We have a game that lasts until 1 army is being reduced to 25% of its starting number. We have some special we have some victory points. For each objective marker, you score 1 victory point if you have more models within 3 than your opponent. If you have at least 2 and twice as many, you score 2. If you're the only player to have models within 3, you score 3. You score 1 victory point if the enemy army is broken at the end of the game. If the enemy army is broken and yours is not, instead you score 3. You score 1 victory point if the enemy general has been wounded during the game. If the enemy general has been removed as a casualty, instead you score 3. You score 1 victory point if the model with the highest points cost in your opponent's army that is not their general has been wounded during the game. If the most expensive model that's not their general has been removed as a casualty, instead you score 2. We have some special rule. We've got Dark of the Night, bummer for the bolt thrower. We've got Maelstrom of Batal, and then we have a Strange Aura. At the beginning of the priority phase, each turn roll a d6 and consult the table below to determine what effect the Sites of Power has this turn. On a 1 or 2 models within 3 inches of the objective marker that suffer a wound, ignore it on a roll of a 6. On a 3 to 4, until the end of the turn, models within 3 inches of the objective marker automatically pass courage tests. And on a 5 or 6, until the end of the turn, models within 3 inches of the objective marker may re-roll natural roll of 1 when making strikes. So, there we have it. Sights of Power!
All right, and we were playing on this sweet Arm and Hen board, and it's worth noting that one of the sights of power are, of course, on Arm and Hen, because it's a sight of power, so
Sure.
you can see for a long, long way from up there.
A seeing
unless it's
seat.
the dark of the night, in which case you cannot see a long, long way. I put the bolt thrower on the board without any sort of real battle plan. You can see where it is. It's deployed in the center of what became the eastern board edge. I take priority on the first turn. I should note, I haven't said what Tyler was playing. Tyler was playing the forces of Lyndon, of course, led by Elrond, with his main man, Lindia.
Nope.
Bilbo,
Incorrect.
the old hobbit.
It's Rivendell, not Lindon.
Oh, Rivendell, my bad. My bad. I know what this game is. Playing Rivendell, led by Elrond, main man Lindia, accompanied by Bilbo in his retirement, perhaps writing in a big red book. Perhaps he's brought his ring with him when he shouldn't have. Gandalf told him to leave it behind. We'll get into that. And finally, we have a captain who was all by himself as a solo warband drop. I gave Tyler the first turn priority, where Elrond rolls a 6 and rides in on roughly the center of the northern board edge. Lindia rolls a 2, and I think actually he rolled Lindia first. Yeah, that's right. Lindia rolled a 2. I put him in the just off to the center of the northern board edge. Then he rolls Elrond. Elrond rolls the 6 and comes in next to Lindia. And Bilbo is, of course, in Elrond's warband. And finally, the captain of Rivendell rolls a 2 and spends both of his points of might to arrive, so that all of Tyler's army is in one nice big clump. I rolled Gandalf first and rolled a 6 and could have come in next to the bolt thrower, but decided to come in on the southern board edge instead because I didn't really see any reason to be next to the bolt thrower. It's worth noting that the bolt thrower is my most expensive model on the board, so Tyler is trying to kill all 3 of the siege crew and remove the bolt thrower itself from the table to get those 3 victory points. He does have a couple of Rivendell knights, so I was a little bit worried that the knights were just going to ride hell for leather and take my bolt thrower off the table. But I decided that I'd rather have... I didn't like that side of the board edge to bring my army on, honestly. I wanted to get to the Arm and Hen, to the steps, and basically just wall off that objective. Irolas rolls a 4 and comes in next to Gandalf on the southern board edge, and we have deployed. I also didn't mention that Tyler got 6 foresight points this game, so he's got all the foresight in the world. I do, however, take the next turn priority and give it to him, and basically we spend 4 turns maneuvering across the board. It's worth noting that you did say the Dark of the Night is sad for the bolt thrower, and that's sort of true, but it is a siege weapon, so it can shoot and hit on 6s.
Sure.
But in the first 4 turns of the game, it accomplishes nothing. As the battle lines lock, you can see exactly what's happening. The bolt thrower, essentially, I think it wasn't even shooting in the first turns of the game. It was running away from the threat of the Rivendell Knights and being carried to go score one of the corner objectives. Irolas and Gandalf go to wall off Arm and Hen, and Tyler sends 2 Rivendell warriors with bows towards the let's call it the objective closer to the camera on the right hand corner. That would be the northeastern objective, yeah. And the rest of his army is effectively around the northwestern objective, nearer to Arm and Hen. On turn 5, Tyler's taken priority, given me priority. We get a couple of shooting shots in the shooting phase. We're now close enough for that to happen. I've got my 3 longbowmen are on the steps of Arm and Hen. They all miss. Unfortunately, the elves do fare much better and manage to kill 2 of my longbowmen. We take a couple of casualties there. Whereupon, for the rest of the game, my longbowmen ran to hide on the top of Arm and Hen, cowering behind the seats to go score the objective. Tyler takes turn 6 priority by spending 2 of his foresight points, and we get to this situation in the board where the lines are locked, the elves are going to come through the trees, and we have walled off the bottom of Arm and Hen. I have sent 4 warriors off to that northeastern objective to go contest the 2 elves. In the shooting phase, I managed to get a sneaky kill on one of the 2 elves that are defending that objective. The bolt thrower, I was sort of picturing it. I had my guys, they were within 12 inches of the elves on that objective. Both of those elves have bows, so the elves could have been shooting at my guys with +1 to wound, killing me on 5s. Would have been bad news bears. So I had my guys hiding behind this rock, and the bolt thrower was firing at the 2 elves, like, I'm picturing it firing, covering fire, tracer shots into the night or something. Manages to kill one of them, take him off the objective, so we're feeling pretty good about that. I do take another shooting casualty in return, though. And Elrond, in the next turn, Tyler also takes priority. Elrond rides forth, does a cheeky Wrath of Bruinen, and the battle lines really lock. Gandalf has been riding around the flank at this point, and throws a Sorcerer's Blast in an attempt to clear the way for himself to get through some elves and cause more mischief. Unfortunately, while he manages to cast a spell, he fails to kill the elf he blasted. On the other flank, near that northeastern objective, my guys come charging round the rock, and the remaining elf opens fire and kills one of them. And in my confidence, I had 4 guys over there, right? I was like, the elves are attacking my main force. I'm going to send 2 of them back, and then the other 2 will come charging around this rock. So the elf opens fire, immediately kills one of them, which was not what we wanted at all. And this is sort of the board state at the top of turn 8, where Tyler once again takes priority. We get a move off between Lindir and Irolas, and Irolas gets to go first. In the shooting phase, I open up with my bolt thrower, and basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to clear a way for Gandalf. There are like 2 elves in the way. Really one of them, the second one, would have been a bonus kill. If I could have killed the 2 elves, Gandalf would have been able to charge, pull a heroic combat, and charge into the Rivendell captain. So the bolt thrower rolls its shots. It gets like 6 shots or whatever. It gets 1 hit and a 5. So I spend the second point of might, or the first point of might, to make that to get 2 hits. And with the Dark of the Night, strength 7 shots, it needs 3s and 2s to wound the elves, and fails to get any kills, which was really, really sort of rough. It would have been nice to get at least 1 of those kills, if not 2, to open Gandalf to get into the Rivendell captain. But unfortunately, that did not go my way. So Gandalf's in the backfield. He's sort of stuck around a pile of elves, and Elrond and the rest of the elves are cleaving through my front lines. We take another Wrath of Bruin into the face this turn and take 5 casualties, only killing 3 elves. And Gandalf, of course, goes into some guys, but does get trapped and surrounded. As you can see here, if I'd been able to kill the warriors, you can't quite see them, but I'd have been able to get into the captain. It would have been great. Turn 9 priority goes to me. We get a move off between Gandalf and Bilbo, Master Burglar, or not Master Burglar, just regular old Bilbo. The move off goes to me, and Gandalf can't go anywhere. He does make himself terrifying for shits and grins, and we get into some more combats. On the other flank, Elrond and Lindir are just trying to cleave their way up the steps. Tyler has pretty much mopped through my army at this point. And we get a very important turn where Bilbo puts on the ring, goes into Gandalf with a bunch of elves. The fight, of course, goes to Tyler. I spend 2 points of fate from Pippin, 1 point of fate from Shadowfax, and still Shadowfax has died. I've learned my lesson, though, Sam. I do not spend Gandalf's fate on Shadowfax. We just acknowledge that we're coming off of Shadowfax, and Pippin also takes a wound this turn. So there we are, Gandalf on the floor. The next turn goes to Tyler, doesn't even need those foresight points. We get another move off. Gandalf calls another move. Tyler doesn't answer. Basically, there isn't really very much for Gandalf to do. I do get a Sorcerer's Blast off at his captain, and do manage to wound his captain with that Sorcerer's Blast, which is pretty nice. Elrond calls another move, as does Irolas. I don't mark down who the move went to. I think it went to Elrond, but like I said, it doesn't really matter, because all Irolas wanted to do was stop the Wrath of Bruin and going. Or maybe it did go to me, because I don't have another Wrath of Bruin noted down. So maybe it does go to me. I do get another cheeky shooting kill with my bolt thrower this turn. After all of these elves charge into Gandalf, you can see there are 2 elves and a Rivendell Knight in the back of the field. They're on the northwestern objective. My bolt thrower manages to kill the Rivendell Knight, threading the needle,
nice.
needing 6s to hit. he manages to kill the Rivendell Knight this turn. So Tyler had to pull a couple of extra guys back next turn to really make sure that he locked down that objective. Elrond has effectively mopped through my army. I am broken this turn, and Lindir is now fighting his way up the steps to try and claim that objective from Irolas. In the combat phase, Gandalf is once again fighting a horde of elves who are two-handing, and Bilbo, who is wearing the ring. So Gandalf is going to lose that fight. Gandalf wins the fight, however, even despite being fight 3. He gets the 6. The elves don't get the 6.
Nice.
And in a fit of rage, to get rid of that ring, I throw all of my dice at Bilbo. I get 3 wounds on Bilbo. Bilbo can re-roll his fate?
Reroll ones.
Reroll ones on his fate. That's right. So on the first fate roll, he gets a 3. On the second fate roll, he gets a 2. On the third fate roll, he gets a 1, re-rolls it into another 2, and just dies.
Nice.
Gandalf. I told him, Sam. I told him to leave it on the mantelpiece, and he brought it with him to his doom. So that was very satisfying. Elrond has obviously he's left Irolas behind. He's ridden forth. He's charged into my Avenger Bolt Thrower, not the crew, just the Bolt Thrower. And because Tyler's got priority, he moved first. The Bolt Thrower is a heavy object, so I had my crew pick up the Bolt Thrower and drag it away from Elrond so that they couldn't, so that Elrond couldn't dismantle the siege weapon, which I thought was highly entertaining.
You didn't just spool it up and go.
That would have been funny too. I could have just shot it at him. As it was, I just pulled it away.
I mean,
I actually didn't think of that. I was so fixated on the fact that it would be funny to drag it away from him, but I didn't think of shooting it. I should note too that my siege veteran had failed his courage test on this turn badly enough that he just ran off the board. Couldn't even spend his will to stay. So Tyler is definitely getting 1 victory point because the veteran.
Yeah.
He does manage to kill Gandalf on the final turn. And it is a 14-16 victory in Tyler's favor. He controlled 3 of the objectives. This elf here, I managed to, like I said, I sent 2 guys round the flank of the stone. He killed one of them with shooting. The next one charged into combat with him, got killed. The other 2 guys who I had sent away turned around and started running back to the objective. The elf shot one of them down and then killed the other one in combat. So this one elf killed 4 warriors of Minas Tirith, 2 with his bow, 2 in combat, scored that objective for Tyler, and is, if not MVP, definitely in the running for it.
Nice. Oof. Well,
it was cool. It was a very fun thematic game. Sort of arrows whizzing through the night, fighting this retreating battle up the stairs of Armenhen, which I did score. That was my 1 victory point that I did score. Like I said, dragging the Bolt Thrower away from Elrond was hilarious. Although I probably should have shot him.
So what did you say? What was the score?
4-16 in Tyler's favor.
I heard 16-14. I was like, wow, that was a very close game.
Oh, no. It's funny. Normally in my games, like I know where it all went wrong. I would find it difficult to put my finger on where this game slipped away from me. He was just consistently killing a couple more guys a turn than I was, I would say, and just did a really nice job with table positioning.
Yeah. Wow.
Super fun game. Good way to end the event, even though it was a loss.
So that puts you, what was your final record at the end of all things?
At the end of all things, I was on 3 wins and 2 losses, which put me right in the middle of the pack where I normally am at these events.
Well, not too bad. Well, looking at the time...
Not too shabby. Happy with those 3 wins. Definitely Atop the Walls is super fun to play. I think, just looking back at it before we get into your final game, I'll do a little bit of my thoughts on the Bolt Thrower. I think for 700 points it does work. In 3 of my games it was huge and instrumental, and in 2 of my games it did absolutely nothing. So,
well, you also played 2 Dark of the Night, right? Which
that's true.
There are a number of them. There are more of them now in these scenarios, but running into Assault on Lothlorien that brings it automatically is rough, and you could also attempt to veto it more. I think it's a harder choice for an event like Nova because the tables are so swingy as far as if there's a bunch of terrain or not. So I think if you play in an event that uses only the first 6 original scenarios out of the core rulebook, which I just played at once, so they do exist, and that was Ardacon as well. I think it's absurd because there are no Dark of the Night, and it's like great just to sit there and bonus things. But I think similar to the last edition, it's very good. I mean, it's better than the last edition. Still not the most fun thing to play against, so...
No. I think, I'll definitely try it again, but I think next time we run Atop the Walls, it'll be, we'll see a captain and maybe some knights in there or something, just to switch it up, make it a little different.
Cool.
All right, Sam, tell me all about your final game. Do I get to read a scenario?
You
Yes.
sure do, yeah. So game five for me, I was playing on, I believe, table 10-ish somewhere. I was towards the glittering peaks, Ben, and I was playing against Barbie, and we were playing Heirlooms of Ages Past.
All right, Heirlooms of Ages Past. Scenario number 13, we have, of course, a Maelstrom mission for this one and some objectives. We've got 6 objectives arranged in a hexagon where within 12 inches of the center of the board, essentially. 12 inches away from each other, 12 inches away from the center, 6 objectives in a hexagon in the middle. And we are looking for an heirloom. Uncovering the heirloom, only one of the objective markers is actually an heirloom that both sides seek. The first time an unengaged infantry model ends its movement in base contact with each objective, they may attempt to search it in an attempt to uncover the heirloom. When this happens, flip over the objective and reveal it to both player. If the objective marker is one of the 5 decoys, remove it from play. If the objective marker is the heirloom, the model that searched it will immediately gain possession of it. If at the end of the game the heirloom has not been uncovered, flip any markers over to reveal the heirloom before working out any victory points. So these are set up at the beginning of the game. One of them is one of the objective tokens is marked differently to be the heirloom. It's not a roll. You score 8 victory points if your army is in possession of the heirloom at the end of the game. If at the end of the game no model from either army is in possession of the heirloom, but you have more models within creeds of the heirloom than your opponent, instead score 4 victory points. 4 victory points. You score 1 victory point for each objective marker that your army has uncovered, which has been revealed to be a decoy. You score 1 victory point if the enemy army is broken at the end of the game, 3 if they are broken and you are not, 1 victory point for wounding the enemy general, 2 for killing the enemy general, 1 victory point for having a banner left at the end of the game, and 2 victory points if you have more banners than your opponent. We have Maelstrom of Battle, as previously mentioned, and an Heirloom of Power. So models holding the relic will be transfixed on a roll of a 1.
Yeah.
And there we have it, Sam. Heirlooms of Ages Past. Tell me, what were you running into?
All right. I was playing against the Men of the West, so Punishment playing them in the doubles. So Bobby had Aragorn, Legolas, Gwaihir, and a mix of tin cans, and a fair number of Warriors of Rohan with Throwing Spear.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I opted to ambush Burda in this game, which I forgot to say the last 2 games. Obviously, he can't ambush in Contest of Champions, and in the previous one against Andrew, I decided it was better just to have him on the board. There weren't so many places for him to pop out. And
yeah, and seize the prizes. The first couple of turns are so key, you just don't want them off the table.
Exactly. So I was back to ambushing Mr. Burda. We get into priority for turn 1, where Bobby wins and gives it to me. I roll a 2 for my Wild Chieftain, and he puts him off in the distance somewhere. And I roll a 6 for my Orc Captain, and I put him in between. So we're playing on sort of like a Rastabel themed board. There are these 2 river sections, and I put him between the 2 rivers. He then
between 2 rivers, eh?
Yeah. He then rolls up, and he rolls a 1 for Aragorn, and decides to spend his Mighty Hero to move him onto the board on a 2. I don't know that I thought that was the right choice.
You can't be Mighty Hero off the table.
Yes, you can.
Really?
Yes.
Pretty sure it's an active special rule and you don't get to use it while you're off the board.
Well, we did.
Anyway.
We asked Devon, and he was like, "Yep, you can."
Oh, okay, just kidding. That's a change.
So anyway, Aragorn Mighty Hero is onto the board. I actually think it would have been better just to wait, because I then put him. As you can see him on this picture, there's a like semicircle of river. I just put Aragorn and his warband in the right behind that semicircle of river. They couldn't, basically, they like moved on and were like on the edge of the river, so they were like now 2 turns away from anything, from any of the air, or more than 2 turns. It was going to take them 2 turns to cross the river, basically, from moving on. He rolled a 5 for Gwaihir and just brought him on. Super obnoxious, right? You're fly 12 with a big base, you just fly on, and he reveals the first heirloom, or the first relic, and it's not the heirloom, but I now have to deal with this giant bird, flipping over relics pretty quickly, and he rolls a 2 for Legolas. And this was maybe a better decision, but it still wasn't great. He ends up spending 4. Maybe did I put my captain somewhere else? No. He ends up spending 2 of Legolas's might to roll a 4 and get to choose where he puts him. I would have obviously put him on the opposite side from Aragorn, behind the one big line of sight blocking terrain. He puts him basically where my Orc captain had gone. Yeah, we move on. But I'm not mad about Aragorn being in a bad position and Legolas being down 2 might off the bat. Turn
Yeah,
2.
that feels good.
Turn 2 goes to me. And Aragorn calls a free march, and Gwaihir calls a move. Gwaihir's move takes him on top of another objective, in which he flips and reveals is not the objective. My Orc captain and crew run into an objective and reveal it. It's the one closest to Aragorn, and it flips, and it is the artifact. So it's actually not a great place for me to have it, because it's very close to Aragorn, but I was going to get chased down by a giant bird anyway, so I have the artifact, and I have Birder in reserve.
And with it not being a roll-off now, like it's always it's a shell game. It's always going to be, that one. So
Yeah.
at least you got it, even if it's it's not like you were like, oh, I flipped it over and I rolled a 6 and I had the relic.
Yeah.
It's like it was always going to be better you than Aragorn.
Yeah, so Aragorn, let's see the next picture, maybe? Yeah, so Aragorn marches up, crosses the river. My Wild Wog chieftain is able to charge into Gwaihir, and I just go for it.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Potentially a risky business. Legolas, there's some shooting. He spends a point of might to do a wound. I'm not sure what he shot at and killed, but I lost one model.
And Legolas is now mightless. That's tasty.
Legolas is mightless. We get into the combat phase, and I get very aggressive here with the Wild Wog chieftain. I decide to call a strength. Just on the offhand, I win the fight against Gwaihir. I'm going to try and do some wounds to him. Unfortunately, Gwaihir wins the fight and does a wound to the Wild Wog chieftain, and I fail my fate. So I take a wound from Gwaihir. Turn 3 also goes to Bobby, and we get a move off. My Orc captain calls a move. Aragorn calls a free move. This was it. I was run away from Aragorn, King Elessar. The move, however, goes to Bobby, and he's able to get Aragorn into my Orc holding the artifact. I also should note, I also call a move with the Wild Wog chieftain, because I was trying to burn pull another point of might off Gwaihir, or pile in with a bunch of models, and if I end up, and basically stop him from scoring the other couple of objectives. I ride off with so I charge the Wild Wog chieftain and basically get the trap on Gwaihir with 2 models, and then send a bunch more in, try and get the actual trap. I think I end up picking up a couple of relics with Warg Riders who run over and dismount, kind of thing. We get into combat where...
Oh, Birder surely arrives this turn,
Nope.
Sam.
Oh yeah, he does. I guess... Yeah, so Birder shows up. Maybe go for another picture, because this is Aragorn.
Oh, I thought that was Birder, just kidding, it's a different troll.
Oh yeah, another one. No, one more. There we go. So here we go. You can see Gwaihir is trapped by the Wild Wog chieftain and all his cronies. Birder shows up after Aragorn's charge into my Orc, and Birder is within 6 inches of Aragorn and staring him down. We get into combat. Alas, I can't throw rocks because I've counters moving. But we get into combat, and Gwaihir spends 2 points of might, his final 2 points of might, to win the fight against the Wog chieftain. And he does kill the Wild Wog chieftain, which is a shame, but he's also out of might as well. So he's only got Aragorn sitting on Mighty Hero and 3 points of might. However, Ben, my noble Orc warrior holding the heirloom, picks up his dice, and he rolls a 6, Ben. And I can only attribute this to the Baron of Dice. That's right, the official sponsor of Gondor Calls for Ale. the Baron of Dice, whose perfectly balanced dice with no micro bubbles have a Gondor calls for AO guarantee to roll sixes at least some of the time. If you would like a set of dice that go with the theme of whatever Middle-earth strategy battle game army you're currently playing, then I highly recommend checking the link in the description of this episode. You can also use that promo code in the description of the episode, capital G, capital C, to get a nice discount on that order you place. So yes, my Orcs picked up his Baron of dice, and he rolls a 6. Aragorn picks up his, probably not, Baron of dice, and rolls a 4 high. Aragorn then spends 2 points of might to win the fight.
You got to.
He absolutely eviscerates my Orc and is holding the relic and is staring down Burda with 3 might. Aragorn's only mighty hero and 1 point of might, Ben. So, feeling okay in this situation.
All right.
Elsewhere in the game, I managed to get 1 kill. I think my Hill Troll, that's with the Captain's Warband, is fighting some random guys, and lose a total of 3 models. Turn 4 goes to Bobby, and he takes priority, as he should. I call a move with my Orc Captain. He calls a... Oh, no, I forgot. I forgot something else, Ben. My brilliant... my brilliance, which is my Hill Troll, who is in the Orc Captain's Warband, wins his fight, picks up the model he's fighting, and hurls it at Aragorn, passes his
intelligence. That was your kill. You got a kill, but it was the guy, the hurley.
Yeah, passes his intelligence test, does a wound to Aragorn. Aragorn fails 2 fate and passes his last one. So Aragorn is down to 1 might and no fate, and he's on the ground. So this is a very crucial move off that my Orc Captain calls a move, which would basically allow me to pin Aragorn with somebody else and then charge them. So Aragorn calls the free move. My Captain uses last point of might. The move off goes to me. We do exactly that. We just stop Aragorn from moving. Tie up the rest of the people in combat. Burda charges into Aragorn, who is on the ground and not having a good time. Aragorn calls for Frodo this turn, which is smart because it puts him at fight 8, so he outfights me. I call a strike with Burda, and Aragorn calls a strike as well. I believe this turn Aragorn wins the fight. I don't have it written down, but can't strike. Can't strike.
Fights his way to his feet.
Yeah, can't strike any blows. I then
probably stabbing Burda in the toe with the knife.
Yeah, exactly. I then proceed to do the 2 Hill Trolls fights, and one of them picks up another model and hurls it into Aragorn and knocks him over again. I don't think I wound, or maybe I do wound him. Turn 5 goes to me this time. Aragorn calls a free move. So Aragorn is now out of might, and he's used his mighty hero, and he's used for the turn, and he's used for Frodo. I call a move with Burda. I believe the move goes to me. Burda goes back into Aragorn. I think I trap Aragorn, and I think I also get a Hill Troll. No, I can't quite get the Hill Troll in there. Gwai here is on the other side. He's getting dangerously close to Burda, and I keep passing
he's coming.
Courage test with Orcs and get models in the way of him. I strike higher than Aragorn. I roll the 6 with Burda, and I kill Aragorn this turn with Burda, taking the relic.
Oh, right. In all that, I'd almost forgotten that Aragorn still had the relic.
Yeah. So big swing in points there as well. And at this point, next turn goes to me as well. At this point, I'm seeing red. Everything is great. Burda's gets a point of might back from the General Hunter, so he's got 1 point of might again. Gwai here's right there. So I'm like, I'm gonna kill Gwai here. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be glorious. I put Burda, a Hill Troll, and trap Gwai here and a bunch of other people in there. I call a strike with Burda, and once again was unsure about the math, whether it was better to rend or do the...
Oh, you had me worried that you somehow didn't get the 6 and Gwai had
No, I get the 6, and I try to do the math. I'm like, I can one-shot this stupid bird. I'm so tired of losing to this thing. But I don't know if I can't... I think I went for the trap strikes, and I do 3... I do enough that he uses all of his fate and still... Yeah, I think he just uses his fate, and so I don't kill him, which is a little unfortunate. I think I then decide that Berda is done fighting the bird, or maybe I put him in one more time. I can't quite remember. I stopped taking good notes. I put Berda into him one more time and win, but don't kill him. And basically at that point, my opponent goes, "Wow, you're like really giving me the chance." I was like, "That's a fair point. I really am." So I then Berda like buggers off, and I put this hill troll into Gwaihir, and I win so many fights against Gwaihir and rending him. I think I rolled over the course of 2 turns. I rolled 6 strikes rending him, looking for like I need 3 wounds because he's out of fate, and I only do 2, which was very frustrating. And I think those 2 were done from like wild wargs or something that was like trapping him. And Berda is moving, just like moving around. I think he's moving away from
Making
Gwaihir.
sure to stay 12 inches away from the bird in case you somehow lose priority and can't call a move.
Yeah, so I'm moving away from Gwaihir, and Legolas is just doing his, like, I'm locked in combat, but I'm taking a shot. 2 turns in a row, hits Berda, wounds him, fail my fate, so Berda is down to 1 wound, facing down against Legolas. I'm like, oh my god, this is all, like, feeling like it's slipping away. But I quarter my opponent, and managed to win this game 17-2.
Ooh, wow. So that puts you on 4 wins
Yeah.
and 1 loss for the tournament. Awesome.
Yeah. Great game. Very Berda. Sundays are for Berdas apparently, because on Sunday he killed a Witch King and Aragorn, King of Lesser, and just absolutely awesome. And I think the army did exactly what I wanted it to do going into the event, which was have 3 monsters, so when one of them didn't do something, 1 or 2 of them didn't, I still had a third one to give me the option, or losing one didn't feel that bad because I still had a second hill troll.
Sure.
The ambush ability gives you some amount of play on every scenario and into every game, basically. The game that I lost was on a bad board where ambush wasn't really doing much against a bucket load of might and a very good player, so I really can't complain about how the army did. So yeah,
Awesome.
there we have it. Nova.
Do you happen to remember the placings for Nova when all was said and done?
I believe I took a screenshot.
Nice.
No, that was... Just gotta scroll back at my phone. Stalling. I did. All right. So, shall we go into the placings, or do we want to do the other awards first?
Well, let's do the other awards first. Any of those that we happen to recall.
Sure. So I don't remember. Like I said, I don't remember if they did top 5 or top 3 favorite or best armies.
I think it was top 5.
Well, if it was top 5, I can't remember 4, 5, and 4. Do you remember those? Oh, well, excellent. Ben's just relying on me to remember everything. Perfect. Luckily, I do remember. I apologize for placement 5 and 4. I think one of them was Ted, but I can't remember who the other was. So sorry about that. This was a little while ago at this point in time. Number 3, I got number 3 for my Badur's Horde.
Hell yeah.
Number 2 was Cody with his Khazad-dûm army. And number 1 was...
There. Justly deserved.
Yep. And number 1 was Cody Hensley with his beautiful Battle of the Pelennor led by Imrahil, Hedberigond, and Pippin. Looked absolutely lovely.
Yeah, fantastic.
Favorite armies were also Cody, I believe, for good. And...
There was a 2-way tie for evil between
yes.
Young Duke with his spiders and Jarrett with his werewolves of Angmar.
Yes, yeah. Both also...
Yeah. He owes me that tie because I turned in my vote late and I voted for him. So
There you go. Yep, so that was all the hobby goods. And then we'll get into the placement, Ben. So where would you like to start it? Do we go from...
let's start with number 3.
Number 3 was Trey. I'm not sure what he was playing, apart from that it was good. Number 2...
Congratulations, well done him.
Number 2 was Connor, who I think was playing Men of the West. We played him in the final doubles game. He was one of the people we played. And number 1 was Mr. Matthew Iverson, also playing Men of the West. But this one was Gandalf and Aragorn, whereas Connor's, I believe, had Gwaihir.
Had the bird.
And I'm
awesome.
gonna.
So, Sam, with 4 wins, where did you end up in the final rankings?
I came.
You 8th or 7th?
What is this? Oh, I remember. I was like, I have a shot where I'm in 5th. The final round, I was in. Oh no, it was some people hadn't reported. That's right, and I was like, haha.
Yeah.
I was in 8th, I believe, but apparently I didn't take a picture of that. I must have just assumed I'd remembered it. So yeah, I was in 8th, so top 10. Pretty
Nice.
pretty pleased.
Awesome.
Not bad at all. All right.
Well, this has been a long episode, but I believe we've got at least one shout out to do before the episode ends.
Yep. Well, I think before we go into that, Ben, do you have any events coming up that you want to? Where can we find you next?
Where can we find me next? If I had my phone, I'd be able to tell you the names of the events and their locations. As it is, I'm not prepared for this segment, so we will just leave it in the ether for now.
Ben just crushing it at the end here. All right. Well, we've been asked to mention the Sandy Hills of Rune, which is in Fayetteville, North Carolina, on the 15th and 16th of November. This is a 2-day, 908-point tournament. 3 games on Saturdays, 2 on Sundays. This is run by John, who also always runs an awesome event with a bit of a theme. And the theme of this is there's going to be sniper battles, apparently, Ben. Each force will have a sniper team with models mounted on 25mm bases that do not count towards your points limit. If you can choose to make your own. If you don't, they'll be armed. If you choose to make your own, they're armed with bow, armor, and hand weapon, and a sniper cloak. John will provide a profile for them to use in the tournament. For those that can't bring their own, he will provide a loner team. I will also provide a small prize for the best themed/painted sniper team. There's a few restrictions: no Smaug, no Tom Bombadil, and I believe the TO reserves the right to refuse an army list if it's not in the spirit of a non-competitive tournament, which I love.
Love that.
There will be, and you will get an additional victory point if your sniper team eliminates the enemy sniper team. Fayetteville, North Carolina, the 15th and 16th. An awesome group of people. Sounds like a super fun event. I like a funny points level. I like a little bit of extra theme. And so definitely, if you're in the area, check it out. If you want the players pack, you can, and you don't know where to reach John, or you can't find the event, I think it might be on Best Coast Pairings, but if not, you can reach out to either Ben or I or Gondor Cosrail, and we will get you that information. As far as myself, I will be attending the first of the To War series of escalation tournaments on October 4th. That is in Fredericksburg, Virginia, at your hobby place. I'm going to also be attending, I believe I'll be attending the third and final one of that on the 6th of December, unless I decide to go to Boston and Everwinter if Ben's going to that, which I believe is that same weekend, but a 2-day event.
Awesome. That sounds great. More exciting stuff on the future. I do know I've got 3 events coming up. I just can't remember where they are. I know the dates, but not knowing where they are makes the dates irrelevant.
Sure, yeah. All right, well, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. And if you haven't, if you've made it this far, please consider giving the video a like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of that stuff. If you're listening to it on audio version only and you want to jump over and haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so. And there's also a Patreon if you want to check that out. We're getting this right in at the end, so probably most people have switched off by now. If you haven't and want to prove me wrong, go subscribe to that Patreon. Anyway, thank you for listening, thank you for watching, and we'll be back in 2 short weeks. Thank you for listening to Gondor Calls for Ale. We hope you have enjoyed this episode. We, at Gondor Calls for Ale, are officially sponsored by the Baron of Dice, the producer of premium wargaming dice. These beautifully hand-swirled resin dice have no micro bubbles and are therefore perfectly balanced. With over 3,000 variants and unique designs, nearly every tabletop gaming system is represented. So check out the description of this episode for a link and a discount code. Go buy yourself some new dice and let the good times roll. We at Gondor Calls for Ale are not associated with Games Workshop, New Line Cinema, or the Tolkien Estate. We hope we have not misrepresented or offended anyone. These recordings are strictly recollections of games we've played and are not commentaries on the character or competence of our opponents. They are intended purely for entertainment, and we hope they will be taken as such. You can find us on Patreon, see the link in the description. Supporting Gondor Calls for Ale there helps us continue to produce these episodes. You can find us on Instagram at Gondor_calls_for_ale. Feel free to send us a message there. Or on Facebook as Gondor Calls for Ale, another great place to send us a message. Or you can send us an email at gondorcallsforale@gmail.com. As Boromir, Captain of the White Tower, once said, remember today, listener, today this episode was good.